Never did I imagine I would find myself on the brink of a new chapter at this point in my life, experiencing a thrill that quickened my heart in ways I hadn't known for years. At 39, I found myself straddling the delicate line between youth and the wisdom of age. Caught in the liminal space between my former self and the person I was becoming, I felt ensnared. Once, my world brimmed with vibrancy and vitality, and I had shared nearly 2 decades of marriage with him. Yet, as time passed, that brilliance began to fade. What once ignited fervor has now transformed into obligation, and affection has settled into the monotony of habit. My husband, once brimming with energy and enthusiasm, now appeared content with the tranquil solitude of our evenings apart, embracing the steady rhythm of life's predictability. A lingering desire for something greater remained within me. I continued to yearn for the sensation of being felt, the sound of being heard, and the sight of being seen. I am uncertain about the moment my son Jack began to perceive the changes within me. Perhaps he had always been this way. At 18, he exuded a sense of maturity, confidence, and insight that sometimes left me feeling unsettled. Though our bond had always been strong, there was a distinct shift in his presence lately, as if he were the one nurturing me rather than the reverse. "Mom, are you feeling happy?" One evening, as we lingered in the kitchen, a simple question emerged. The house lay enveloped in silence. The clock's steady ticking echoed in the silence, while my husband had already retreated to bed, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I stirred my tea, a quiet chuckle escaped my lips. "What prompts such a question?" "Certainly, my dear." Jack crossed his arms and leaned casually against the counter. I gazed into his eyes, taken aback by their piercing intensity. "It appears that you may not embody that quality." When had he acquired such wisdom, such experience? The young boy who once clung to my side had transformed. The realization that he had transformed into a young man resonated with me more profoundly than I had expected. A soft sigh escaped my lips as I gazed down at the hands cradling my mug. I recognized that life undergoes transformations from time to time. Though individuals may evolve, one must not relinquish hope in life. His voice carried a weight of concern, resonating softly as he spoke. "Mom, there was a time when your energy was boundless. What transpired?" I yearned to unveil all that lay within me to him, the solitude, the quiet agony of existing in the shadows, a yearning for the extraordinary. Yet certain burdens were not his to carry, for he was my son. A grin spread across my face as a consequence. "Is that so?" "Danny, I'm doing just fine." He seemed to harbor doubts. As the weeks unfolded, I found myself increasingly attuned to Jack's unwavering presence, his frequent check-ins, his efforts to draw me into conversation, and his remarkable knack for eliciting laughter from me. Over the years, his protective nature had undergone a transformation. He had transcended the role of merely being my son. I found myself beginning to depend on him. It had been years since we last ventured out for a walk, until one fateful evening. The distant city lights shimmered like stars, and a refreshing coolness lingered in the air. For the first time in ages, a sense of freedom washed over me. As we strolled together, I turned to him and said, "Share something with me. What is your personal vision for the future?" Jack held his tongue for a moment, contemplating his response. "While uncertainty lingers, one thing is clear. I aspire to embrace a life devoid of regrets." A wistful smile graced my lips. "That is an admirable goal. What about you?" he asked. I came to a halt, a question that caught me off guard. For an extended period, I embraced the roles of wife, mother, and caregiver. My dreams and yearnings lay hidden, stifled under the weight of responsibilities. Yet, as I lingered beneath the clear night sky, a profound realization washed over me. Disappearing was never my desire. To exist as nothing more than a mere echo of who I once was far from my desire. I yearned to embrace life anew. I believe it's time for me to begin living for my own sake once more. I spoke deliberately. Jack wore a broad grin. "Outstanding." In an instant, everything shifted. After years of uncertainty, a spark of anticipation ignited within me as I contemplated the uncharted territory ahead, despite the absence of a clear destination. A soft melody hung in the atmosphere as we wandered through the quiet streets, wrapping around us like a secret from days gone by. A handful of couples gently swayed to the mellow rhythm of a timeless jazz tune, while the inviting warmth of a quaint cafe spilled onto the sidewalk. The scene unfolded with an enchanting allure, two souls swaying in harmony, their concerns momentarily cast aside as they lost themselves in the melody. I paused, captivated by the scene, if only for a fleeting moment. It had been ages since I allowed myself to be fully present, free from the weight of hesitation or the burden of anticipating what lay ahead. Before I could utter a word, Jack grasped my hand firmly. He beckoned, "Come dance with me." I chuckled softly, shaking my head in disbelief. "What exactly are you, Danny?" Yet, he was already pulling me toward the soft glow of the cafe's open patio. There was no opportunity to refuse, no inquiries to be made. His hand felt steady and warm in mine as we strolled, and then he gently rested his other hand on my waist as we swayed to the music. His unwavering confidence in leading me took me by surprise. I chuckled, somewhat in resistance. "You're not even one to dance, Danny. You don't either." Thus, we find ourselves at a standstill. He offered a smile, a true, unfiltered laugh, long missing from my existence, burst forth from the depths of my being. The music from the cafe enveloped us, guiding our movements, and we found ourselves dancing as if we had been doing so for a lifetime. Only the rhythm of the song filled the air, accompanied by the gentle twinkling of string lights overhead and the exhilarating sensation of being truly alive, free from awkwardness, devoid of hesitation. I twirled, perhaps lacking grace, yet it mattered not. I pulled back my cheeks, flushed with a rush of unexpected exhilaration. "Oh, be quiet." Suddenly, his expression shifted, softening just as quickly as it had hardened. He murmured, his voice scarcely rising above the melody that enveloped the room. "This is something you ought to embrace more often. What will your next move be?" "Live?" I uttered, the words carrying a weight I hadn't foreseen. In truth, I had lost touch with the essence of living, with the art of relishing moments for their own beauty, unburdened by guilt and free from the shadows of what lay ahead. For years, I embraced the roles of wife, mother, and caregiver. Yet in the process, I seemed to have faded away, losing sight of who I truly was. Yet, this evening, a sense of liberation washed over me, a sensation long absent from my life, as I swayed to melodies unfamiliar to both of us. Under the soft glow of the cafe lights, Jack's grin suggested he could perceive the understanding gradually permeating my soul. Before the final notes faded away, he spun me around once more and whispered, "You're beautiful when you're happy." I exhaled, feeling the thrill of the moment gradually settle within me. It is possible that he was indeed right. Maybe it was time to return to the art of living. A transformation had taken root within me as we strolled out of the cafe and along the street. After a prolonged period of uncertainty, a spark of anticipation ignited within me, compelling me to discover what lay ahead, despite my complete lack of foresight. The house lay in silence as we arrived, bathed in the soft, ethereal light of the street lamps beyond. True to form, my husband had already drifted off to sleep. The silence lingers, the routine persists, yet this evening held an air of distinction. Sleep held no allure for me. For the first time in years, I experienced a profound sense of awakening. Truly, profoundly alert, the recollection of twirling beneath the cafe lights, laughter spilling forth without inhibition and a sense of self returning, still sent a delightful shiver across my skin. Jack made a mental note. He certainly did. "Do you not feel weary?" Propped up against the doorframe, a knowing smile playing on your lips as you regard me? He inquired. After a brief pause, I gently shook my head. "I do not consider myself a mere number." He smiled and remarked, "Good. Following that, let us proceed with decisive action." I raised an eyebrow as he offered a casual shrug. "Please make haste. When did you last act solely driven by joy?" The question struck me like a bolt, leaving me momentarily frozen. I realized, with a pang of regret, that in my relentless pursuit of ensuring the happiness of my son, my spouse, and my family, I had neglected to turn that same inquiry inward, forgetting to ask myself what truly mattered. At a certain moment, Jack grasped my jacket. "Let us proceed, if you would be so kind." I furrowed my brow in displeasure. "Where do you wander?" "You'll see," he said, a glint of mischief dancing in his eyes. For a brief moment I came to a halt. Silence enveloped the house. My husband lay peacefully asleep, and it would be wise for me to follow suit and retire to bed as I typically do. Yet, I found myself pondering the emotions that stirred within me this evening. How liberating, how buoyant, and yet there was an undeniable force within me that clung to that sensation. I grabbed my coat and stepped through the door in pursuit of him. 20 minutes later, we found ourselves outside a dance studio, our expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. At this hour, I found myself turning to Jack in the dance studio. With a smile, he inserted the key into the lock and turned it, the door creaking open before him. I might have convinced a friend to allow us to stay the night there. I shook my head in disbelief. "Pray tell, what was your method for achieving that?" He offered a nonchalant shrug. "I navigate life on my own terms." He swung the door wide and flicked on the lights, leaving no room for my protests. The gleaming wooden floor reflected the soft light, and the studio stood empty, echoing a sense of solitude. A wall stood adorned with mirrors stretching from floor to ceiling, capturing our reflections in a hushed anticipation. The room possessed an air of reverence, as though it were poised for something to stir from its depths. Jack scrolled through his phone, his eyes darting with anticipation, before making his way to the diminutive speaker nestled in the corner. In an instant, the air was suffused with soft melodies. I ingested with a deliberate and measured cadence. "Is that you, Jack?" I couldn't tell if he had turned to me and interrupted. "There are no justifications. Tonight we simply danced." I gazed into my reflection, releasing a slow breath. The woman gazing back at me seemed filled with doubt and reluctance. Yet, beneath it all, there lingered another presence, one that seemed poised to break free. "Very well," I responded. "Yet, if I appear foolish, the blame rests with you." He let out a hearty laugh. "Agreed," and we began to shift, reminiscent of our time at the cafe. I began with a stiffness, my movements awkward and calculated, held back as if I had hidden away the part of me that once relished moments like this for far too long. Yet Jack exhibited a remarkable patience. He guided me softly, his movements fluid and assured. He murmured, "Simply feel, do not ponder." I shut my eyes, surrendering to the moment, and for the first time in years, I released my grip. I surrendered to the music, letting my body remember the sensation of moving boldly and without doubt. And in that moment of dance, something within me shattered open. A surge of emotions, memories, and an unrecognized yearning for something I didn't even know I needed. For an eternity, I found myself fading into the shadows of my own existence. Yet here I stood this evening, breathless and utterly, completely unbound. By the time the music drew to a close, I found myself in fits of laughter, filled with joy, alert, and exuberant. Jack wore a smile. "I told you that you had it in you all along." Still regaining my composure, I shook my head in disbelief. "I find myself in awe of how I could have overlooked my deep affection for this." "Well," he said, "perhaps you should consider ceasing to forget. It may be time for you to consider taking a step forward." I paused, as his expression softened. "Participate in a class. Embrace the great outdoors more often. Engage in an act solely for your own benefit." A sensation awakened within me as I looked upon him. Is it possible for me to? Could I truly abandon the existence I had meticulously crafted? To embrace a life that is comfortable, secure, and predictable, yet yearn to chase something solely for my own fulfillment? Before I could even voice my curiosity, the reply came in. "Indeed," I responded with a smile. "The decision has been finalized. I am confident that I shall." In an instant, a transformation stirred within me. I was more than merely his wife. I was more than merely his mother. I was the one who stood apart, and that was enough for the first time in quite a while. Upon waking the next morning, I experienced a sense of lightness that I hadn't felt in years. The unforeseen evening of revelry left my body tingling with a pleasant ache, yet I felt invigorated rather than weary. The thrill of the previous night lingered in my veins as I extended my limbs. The fluidity of my body, the liberation I felt in allowing myself to unwind, was nothing short of euphoric. As Jack stepped into the kitchen, a smile illuminating his features, I found myself still enveloped in that very emotion. He extended his hand toward the coffee pot, playfully remarking, "You're still glowing." Despite the eye roll, a grin escaped my lips. He remarked that last night was delightful, suggesting, "Let's give it another go." I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. He took another sip of his coffee, leaning casually against the counter. "What reason is there to halt at this moment?" Pondered. Embracing new knowledge is essential if you wish to approach this with the seriousness it deserves. A sense of exhilaration fills the air. Intrigued, I tilted my head as he smiled and placed his mug down with a flourish. I blinked bachata. "Indeed," he remarked, pulling out his phone and beginning to play some music. The kitchen resonated with a slow, rhythmic melody. It flowed effortlessly, exuding a captivating allure, and was unlike any rhythm I had ever experienced on the dance floor. He emphasized that it transcends mere dance. It revolves around the sensation of music intertwining, the act of self-expression, and permitting it to narrate a story. He swayed gently to the rhythm, while I bit my lip, captivated by the melody and moved by the way he articulated it. An intriguing phenomenon. I longed to dance in that way, yet I had never attempted it before. I took a slow sip of my coffee, masking my true feelings with an air of indifference. "Very well, guide me," Jack smiled. "This promises to be extraordinary." That evening, we cleared the furniture aside, creating a spacious haven in the living room. A flutter of nervous excitement stirred within my chest the moment the music commenced. "All right," Jack said, stepping forward ahead of me. The essence of bachata lies not only in the movement but also in the fluidity and the connection nurtured between partners. It pertains to feelings. I inhaled deeply and gave a slow nod. "Direct me towards his shoulders." He grasped my hands. "Moving in rhythm with the pulse is the initial stride." Tap, tap, tap. At first uncertain, I chose to emulate his approach. The rhythm was captivating, imbued with a profound essence, yet more languid than salsa. Felt deeply intimate. His hands clasped my waist with a steady grip as he leaned in to whisper, "Excellent. Now let us incorporate the body's movement." With each movement, he swayed his hips ever so slightly, causing a warm blush to spread across my cheeks. "Take a breath," he urged. "It seems to me that you might be reading too deeply into it." I maintained that I was at ease. His smirk held all the answers, and then he proved it. I released my anxieties and exhaled deeply. I allowed the rhythm to permeate my very being, surrendering to the moment as I shut my eyes for a time. As I opened them again, I found myself moving with greater fluidity, mirroring his actions and letting my body seamlessly align with his rhythm. "Improved," he murmured. All else faded away as the music enveloped us, weaving through the small space that separated us. It transcended mere movement on the floor. An unspoken vow of faith, a conversation stripped of language. Furthermore, I had been nurturing my son, Marcus, on my own for many years. Our connection was indestructible, forged through years of steadfast support, shared laughter, and deep-seated trust. Horses had forever captured Marcus's heart, and I was certain of the path to take. Upon reaching the age of 21, I reached out to former acquaintances who operated a distinguished equestrian school and enrolled him in a course designed to enhance his skills. It filled me with pride to witness him wholeheartedly embrace the lessons, mirroring the fervor he displayed for all that he cherished. I chose to concentrate on my own journey as Marcus embraced his new path in equestrian training. It had been ages since I found myself in a committed relationship. I sensed it was perhaps the moment to invite someone into my life, despite not yearning for romance at that instant. At that moment, Lucas made his entrance. Lucas was a man who radiated charm with ease. He possessed an undeniable charm. He exuded success, possessed striking good looks, and consistently found the ideal words to express himself. Yet, I never truly forged a connection with him. For some inexplicable reason, he seemed to embody a sense of security, a person I could assuredly introduce to my friends. Although he failed to ignite any intense emotions within me, he embodied the ideal companion. Yet, I convinced myself that camaraderie held greater importance than fervor. After a few months of dating Lucas, I observed a transformation in Marcus. He had become increasingly distant. The once casual and easy conversations now carried an air of tension. He often watched me with an expression that was impossible to decipher. At first, I thought he was merely acclimating to his new routine, yet it appeared that our tension was mounting. I remarked, "You're back home earlier than expected." Marcus shrugged, his gaze flickering to me before returning to the water glass cradled in his hand. Indeed, I found myself contemplating a number of matters. In the weighty stillness that enveloped us, I filled my glass with a drink. "Shall we engage in a discussion about it?" I asked. He took a moment to collect his thoughts, then set the glass down and let out a deep sigh. "Are you fond of him?" A question that caught me off guard. I cast a disapproving glance at Lucas. "What prompts your inquiry?" With his arms crossed, he leaned casually against the counter. "Mother, I just can't perceive it. In his presence, your light fades. In conversations about subjects that truly ignite your passion, your laughter resonates more vividly than it does in this moment." I chuckled softly, shaking my head in disbelief. Connections often transcend mere excitement. Marcus, at times, it's simply about discovering that special someone with whom you can share the journey of life. He tightened his jaw, a silent testament to his resolve. It seems akin to making compromises. The weight of his voice made me stop in my tracks. I watched him intently, sensing that his words held deeper meaning. "Marcus," I spoke with caution, choosing my words with care. "My sole desire is for your happiness." He departed, leaving me with an inexplicable sensation that eluded my understanding. As I reclined in bed that night, my thoughts wandered to Marcus's formative years, recalling how he had consistently been my greatest source of joy and the countless moments we had shared together. This evening, I found myself pondering the manner in which he had looked at me, as though an unspoken secret lingered in the air between us. A shift had occurred, though its nature eluded my understanding. His laughter, usually so effortless, now carried a hint of strain as they lingered in the moment. I noticed a palpable fear in him, as if an unseen barrier loomed between us. He paused, a moment of uncertainty, before daring to touch my shoulder or navigate past me in the hallway. One evening, Lucas arrived for dinner. He entered, a bottle of wine in hand, and bestowed upon me a gentle kiss on the cheek. Marcus entered the kitchen as I arranged the table, his hair still glistening with moisture from his recent shower. Upon catching sight of Lucas, his lips formed a tight line as he halted in the doorway. I glanced at him and said, "You're just in time for dinner." His voice was strained as he replied, "I already had something." His eyes were locked on Lucas. Lucas chuckled, "Come, join us for a bit, dear one." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I am not a child." With a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes, Lucas raised an eyebrow. Indeed, it held no significance. I exhaled slowly, sensing the escalating tension that hung in the air between them. "Please, Marcus, just stay for a moment." He paused in stillness for a heartbeat, then deliberately retrieved a chair, settling into it across from Lucas. He barely uttered a word, scarcely grazing his meal. I endeavored to maintain a light-hearted tone in our exchange, yet occasionally, I caught him gazing at me with an inscrutable look. It wasn't until Lucas departed later that evening that I stumbled upon Marcus, alone in the living room, lost in thought as he stared into the void. Following a brief pause, I settled beside him on the couch. "What troubles you?" Softly, I asked. Following an extended stretch of quietude, he finally shifted his gaze in my direction. There was a new depth in his eyes, an elusive quality that I struggled to define. Marcus remarked, "You don't truly love him." My heart flutters at his promise. Marcus interrupted me before I had the chance to complete my thought. "One does not. You feel that your place is by his side, as it aligns with what is deemed right." With a deep inhalation, I steadied myself. The truth pressed down upon me, yet I felt an urge to dispute and assert that he was in error. Lucas did not receive my affection. In truth, I have never experienced that. He possessed a pragmatic nature. He assisted me in bridging the gaps that existed in my life. There was an unusual timbre to Marcus's voice that set my heart racing. He advanced a step in our direction, drawing us nearer. He slipped his hands into the depths of his pockets. The contours of his face were accentuated by the elongated shadows, the golden rays of the setting sun illuminating a flicker in his expression that I was not yet prepared to decipher. His voice carried a deeper timbre than usual as he spoke. Your presence was truly captivating to behold. You seemed utterly free. I sensed my grip on the reins grow firmer as I swallowed hard. Marcus nodded, his gaze flitting across my features before settling on my eyes. It was a satisfying experience. He appeared to be searching for something akin to permission or a response, and his gaze carried a weighty intensity. The silence hung thick and palpable. The warmth of my skin contrasted sharply with the coolness of the air around me. The sound of my heartbeat echoed in my ears, almost deafening in its intensity. I cleared my throat, taking a cautious step back. It is imperative that we recover the horses. Marcus blinked, as if emerging from a deep slumber, his senses slowly coming back to life. He exhaled softly, a slight shake of his head revealing a hint of amusement. Indeed, that is correct. Yet, the fervor between us lingered as we guided the horses back to their stalls. It merely deteriorated further. With each furtive glance he stole and every brush of his hand against mine as we reached for the same buckle, I felt it stirring within me. With each gentle caress, an electric thrill coursed through me. Marcus had ceased to hide what I endeavored to overlook, yet found myself unable to do so. Once we had finished, he observed me as I groomed my horse, casually leaning against the stall door. Though his arms were crossed over his chest, he was not trying to give off an air of nonchalance. He seemed to radiate intensity, if nothing else. I stifled a chuckle, my throat tightening as I did so. He made no attempt to refute the fact that your gaze was fixed upon him once more. I hesitated for a moment, then met his gaze directly. Marcus, my life is quite splendid. I stand on my own. I run my own business and have raised a son of whom I am immensely proud.